everyone, and welcome back to the EnergiaSaves podcast, where we try to make interesting conversations happen about energy efficiency and school districts and just innovative funding solutions that can benefit school communities. I'm really pleased and excited to welcome back Dr. Donald James. He was he was a very long time superintendent and one of our cherished clients at Commack School District. And he has a lot of experience, not only in education, but in the application of energy performance contracts. We've actually done 3 of them together at 2 different districts. So, he can definitely speak about the topic in a way that will resonate, I believe, with school officials and your concerns. So welcome back, Dr. James. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Kendra. It's good to see you again.
You too. So Dr. James, would you start, last time we talked about the Commack project in particular, and today I'd like to just kind of talk a little bit more generally about performance contracts. Would you recommend the concept of performance contracting to other districts, and if so, why?
Certainly. I would highly recommend the performance contract process to any district that qualifies. And by that, what I mean is, and I think you mentioned in the previous podcast, does your district qualify? A lot of it having to do with the size of the district, the square footage, the needs of the community, and things of that nature. I worked in a small district, and I worked in what would be at least suburban, from a suburban perspective, a large district, and they both qualified. One qualified for a project around 2 or 3 million, and the larger district qualified for multiple projects totaling, I want to say, close to 40 million. So I would highly recommend it for a number of reasons, not the least of which is you receive capital improvements for your facilities that support energy savings. The savings are guaranteed. You also receive improvements such as solar and cogen that result in significant energy savings in other ways. So aside from the savings that you realize, the capital improvements, you reduce the carbon footprint of the district. And schools, just out here, 8,000 people in 8 schools, you burn a significant amount of fossil fuels on a daily basis. So getting to a place where you're not and reducing your carbon footprint is really desirable. So if we're going to talk about it in classrooms and we're going to sell this to students, like, hey, we have to do this, they're always hearing about things that are going on out in the world with climate change. Here's one way where we can really truly engage in that process, where it may be different at home because it's we don't have at home the necessary financial support that we get in schools for things like energy savings. Where we get that in schools, I think, is really tremendous. So I would highly recommend it for any district that qualifies.
Thank you. That's great, Dr. James. What advice would you give to school officials before they undertake an EPC? What do you think were the factors that contributed to your success with this concept?
So the first thing is to engage people in conversation about the process. So I think when I go back to the previous podcast, I met you and I think your father at a conference. You sold me on the process pretty quickly. I had you in. We talked about the process moving forward, and then before we moved any more in the process, I started having conversations both with the Board of Education and the community, and of course internally with the administrative staff, so that they would understand from the outset and have a conversation and be able to ask questions about the process. Because one of the things that I think sometimes scares people is it sounds too good to be true. In New York, and I can't speak for other states, but certainly in New York, the savings are guaranteed. And they're guaranteed. By that, what I mean is you're guaranteed to save enough money and collect enough state aid to pay for the project in totality. So there is no cost to the district outside of what you were already spending on energy. Now you're not. You're paying down the cost of the upgrades, which are great because you got roofs and boilers and new lighting and things of that nature, which are tremendous. In Commack, I know we also saved enough money that we had a positive cash flow. So we saved money, we paid for the bond issue, which supported the EPC. But then we'd have another close to $1 million a year in cash flow that we could then use to support educational programs in our schools. So I would make sure that you keep everybody in the conversation early and make sure they understand this process moving forward and sort of the legalities of it. And then because we did multiple, Kendra, what we did was we kept coming back and sharing as we saved money. We showed the savings. Where did we spend the savings? What did this look like? How could we do this moving forward? We shared the legal component around if the savings don't materialize, the ESCO actually has to pay the difference. That never happened in Commack or in my previous district. I don't know that it's happened anywhere, but I know that they're bonded and they must pay if you don't realize the savings that they guaranteed. And then they would come in and make additional changes so that they didn't have to pay again. I know that's what they guarantee, but I never saw that happen, to be perfect. And I never heard that from another superintendent. I never heard anyone having gotten a check.
Right.
So that's what I would keep everybody involved early.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, the success of so many initiatives, not just EPCs, comes down to just clear, continual communication of what it is you're doing, why, what the goal is, and, what do you value as a district. So I think, the work at Commack went extraordinarily well. All of us being like-minded in that way. And we were certainly happy to get up there, and we love doing board presentations because with so much controversy about so many topics, this is one thing that everybody can rally around, I think. One of the few
that
things.
is 100% true. And no matter what, there's controversy in schools because people are passionate and they care, right? And this was one that everybody could care about and be passionate about and be on the same page.
Exactly.
It worked out well.
Now more than ever, we're really fortunate to be in a business like this. So thinking about other stakeholders, and you've gone through a lot of this, but sometimes when we go into a district, the superintendent may see the value right away, or any administrator, but the others don't. And how would you approach perhaps a superintendent getting resistance from a facilities director or a business official in, why should we do this? Why shouldn't we just do what we've always done? Just do it the traditional capital route? Why do we have to stick our necks out and do an EPC? And what would you say to them in order to help get the buy-in of those folks?
So, and I think that's a very real scenario where you would have people who are resistant because in their mind it's too good to be true, right? And so over time, much like anybody else, and I'm not one as superintendent to force change, right? Because you can't as superintendent run the whole place. You need people supporting your work and the work of the district. So you want to get people involved in the process from the outset and understanding. So a business official who doesn't necessarily believe that the savings are going to materialize. So one is produce documentation. So I remember saying to you, and this wasn't my business official in Commack. So Mrs. Newman is still there, and she's extremely supportive of the energy performance contract. So it wasn't her, but there was one that was very skeptical. So the first thing we did was produce documentation that showed him, listen, these savings are guaranteed. Here's the bond that they produced that says, if not, we're going to pay the money back. And here's the legislation from the state that indicates that the state is going to pay their share of state aid. So can people still be skeptical after that? Well, yeah, what if the rules change? Yeah, but the rules could always change, right? And this one has been in place for so long that as superintendent and having done it for as long as I did, when things maybe are on the chopping block, it could get changed. And when something's not going to be changed. This one is not going to be changed. It's been there. Like I said, I think we started 17 years ago on the first project in a district before Commack, and it's been in place the entire time. No one's ever talked about reducing it or removing it. So this one's not going to go away. And that was where people would say, okay, now remember 17 years ago, it was still fairly new. I'm not really sure how new it was in the state legislation, but I think it was still fairly new. Now it's not. and you can point to any number of districts. So that's the other thing, is to get testimonials,
Mhm.
and just call up and have conversations with superintendents that have done this and have realized the savings. So in Commack, I think we started probably 10 years ago, and the first ESCO did the work, and the savings materialize. So for those that don't know, you do an audit after everything is completed, of the energy savings, and if they predict it, $1 million a year in savings, then they're going to demonstrate through an energy audit, which is conducted by a third party. So the ESCO doesn't do the energy audit. A third party does the energy audit and demonstrates the savings. If you demonstrate the savings, you're gold, right? That savings, the state aid is already starting to flow.
Mhm.
The bill, and then there's positive cash flow. So that's where that sort of piece of, producing the documentation so that people understand it
Mhm.
and can see it moving forward. And of course, testimonials from superintendents where it's been successful. And I can certainly attest to that, having done it so many times. I would say some of the most exciting work I ever did outside of developing educational programs for kids. Um, that was the crux of my work. I need to be honest about that, but I loved doing this work around the capital projects and improvements.
So wonderful to hear. And what would you say as far as, the contrast between doing an EPC and a capital project? Did you feel that the turnkey nature of the EPC made it more streamlined or somewhat easier for the district to manage as opposed to an architect, a construction manager? Not to knock that process, they both have their place, but just to give people a feel for the difference in the procurement methods.
Sure, it is much. You use the word streamline. I would say streamline. It's simpler.
Mhm.
There's fewer players,
Mhm.
which creates all kinds of savings in other ways, right? So time is probably the most significant thing you save. And in school districts, one of the things that any superintendent will tell you, along with their business official, is time is critical. And of course, the sooner you can get something done, the sooner you can realize the savings, right? So, and we always said this: people say, "Well, it's only a year." Well, a year in the life of a child in school is a long time, right? And that savings that we can realize to pay the bills, but then also build other programs, means that if it takes more than a year, that child loses a year of the benefit of whatever it is that we saved. So there is that component, the streamlining nature of it. And listen, the bond issue component is different. You still have to bond the work. However, and for those that aren't familiar, bond in essence is a mortgage, right? So you bond that people buy the bonds, and then you're able to pay for the project. You pay it back with the savings. For a typical capital project bond issue, you need voter approval. For an EPC, you only need the board's approval
Mhm.
because the savings are guaranteed
Mhm.
and the state aid is guaranteed. So you need board approval, which is also a significant financial savings, right? So anytime you have to do a vote, there's a significant cost involved. So that, it isn't just the voting day; it's everything leading up to that day. So this does save substantial money. It's streamlined, and you can get the work done in a much quicker fashion. So
Thank you. Thank you for your comments on that. I love how you looked at it through the lens of a year in the life of a child
yeah,
and their educational experience. I think it's important to recognize that, it has an impact on them. This is not just about energy savings. It's about really, benefiting the whole district and benefiting kids, right? Because this is money that was being attributed to, wasteful use of energy. Not, I don't like to use the word waste, but you're taking
Mhm.
energy savings, you're allowing for energy savings to happen and reinvesting it to benefit kids and their environment as opposed to the utility suppliers. So I
Yeah.
really think it's important to keep the kids in the middle of the conversation, as you did.
So I could give another quick example, Kendra, and I know you don't.
Sure.
We try not to have podcasts go too long, right? But right now, I think everybody on the front of everybody's mind is what's happening on the world stage, and of course, what that's doing to the cost of energy and heating oil. So heating oil is $5 to $7 a gallon at this point, Schools burn tremendous heating oil to heat the schools. Through our EPCs, through the recommendation of Energia and our ESCO, we put in dual burn furnaces, which means you could basically flip a switch and move from oil to gas. And natural gas, the price of natural gas has actually dropped recently. And so what that would mean to a school district who is running on a tightrope with regard to their budget is savings right this minute, money they didn't have. Where would they get that money? They would have to take it out of either a rainy day fund if they had one, and some don't anymore, or you'd have to reduce programs so that you could heat the buildings. So schools, if you have these dual switches, you switch over to gas and you're not paying $7 a gallon for heating oil. And you're not at the whim of what's happening in other places. You can manage your own consumption in a different way. So I think that's an invisible one that people don't realize. I would guarantee you that the people in the community right here, and I live in Commack, by the way, they don't know, and that's okay. It's okay, because that's our job, is to take care of things. It's like when you pick up the phone and it works. Somebody's behind that phone making sure it works, right? And you're happy they are. You'll hear it if it's not working, but in the meantime, it's working. So when you can turn it over to natural gas and save money and not have to cut programs, that's what people want. They want to send their kids to school, know that it's safe, know that you're doing everything you can to support them and making sure that you're providing programs for them. That's what they want, right? They're running fast as they can to keep themselves afloat and do the work that they need to do to raise their families. So they don't need to be worried about this. So that's one of the things. That's a true benefit that you get from an EPC. Because Energia and the ESCOs are really forward thinking in this, and that really is beneficial for the school district.
That is so well said, and such a timely comment. And if anyone from the Commack School District is listening here, just know that behind the scenes, there's a lot of work being done, not just in this area, but just my experience with the district and how strong the leadership is, that they are doing a lot that you probably don't see to protect programs and protect the kids. So, and that's why one of the reasons we enjoyed working with you so much, because we felt the strong leadership there. Before we close up, Dr. James, is there anything you'd like to say about what you're currently doing? I know that you have a wonderful organization in sight that you're the executive director of, which when you told me about it, I was excited about it because I thought, why wouldn't any aspiring administrator not contact you and at least look into the programs that you offer? So do you have any, like a summary of what you're offering quickly for our audience?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not out of education. I'm not a superintendent. I was superintendent for almost 20 years. Loved the work. It was great work supporting students and teachers and communities. I moved into this new position where I'm the executive director of SITE, the Center for Integrated Training and Education. And in essence, we provide programs for aspiring teachers. Right now, there's a tremendous teacher shortage. So if you want to become a teacher, you have a bachelor's degree, you give us a call. For about $18,000 on the weekends, in less than 12 months, you can be a teacher. And you're well-trained, high-quality programs. We partner with colleges and universities. We hire the adjuncts. We provide these programs in schools on the weekends so that you don't have to travel to a university. And you work with a cohort of individuals. So if you want to become a teacher, we have those. If you want to become an administrator, we have the largest administrative training program in the state. 20% of all administrators in New York State have gone through the SITE program. It's tremendous. And if you'd like to earn a doctorate, we have doctoral programs. Again, they're offered on the weekends. They're executive in nature, so they take place over a 3-year period, and we have earned doctorates. So I'm still in the process of supporting people who want to become teachers, people who want to become administrators, people who want to become superintendents. The work is tremendous. The people that are involved in the company, it's about support and service. So we support you from the day you apply, and as you move through the program. We have our own podcast where we talk a little bit about that. We interview people who've been through the program. It's right behind me because I record my podcasts right here. I sit right here and record I did one yesterday.
And what is your podcast for people who want to? What is the name of your podcast for those who want to check it out?
The Blue Ribbon Project.
Okay.
So the Blue Ribbon Project is the name of the podcast. You find it on any place where you can download podcasts, and We talk to people who've been through the program. We talk to people, high flyers, if you will. So on actually this Thursday, I have an interview with Misha Porter, who was the Chancellor of New York City. She went through the site program. Dave Wicks, who is Superintendent of East Suffolk BOCES. He went through the program. I mean, the list goes on. We have teachers, administrators, principals. It's just tremendous. And one of the things that I like about doing this with you, Kendra, is this is another way to support people when they become administrators. So we produce a lot of folks who become superintendents through our doctoral programs. And this is one thing for them to do. And I think I said it in my last podcast. When you're new, whether you're a new principal or whether you're a new superintendent, first year you want to learn the culture. You want to know what's going on. You want to basically get in and understand the organization. You also would like to bring something in that you know is going to be successful. So if you're a new superintendent, and I did this first year in both the districts where I was superintendent out here. I was superintendent in the city. We didn't do one there. That was before I'd met you. I might have tried in the city. The idea is bring something in where you know you can be successful. This is a project where you know you can be successful. Mm-hmm. So my thinking about this is like, let's give everybody every tool they need to survive out there, because it's challenging to be in education right now. Whether you're a teacher or you're in a leadership position or you're at the door greeting people to come in, it is challenging. And God bless all of them for the work that they do and anything that we can do. And I know, Kendra, this is what you've been doing for years, and now Site, my work with Site, anything we can do to support those people, because our kids need them. So thank you for allowing me that opportunity, Kendra.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just love Site's mission. And I'm really excited that, our missions truly are aligned when you look at it. It's just everyone needs every resource and every bit of support to make their way in education now. And we need each other, and we need to, learn from each other. And so whether it's companies or other educators or, yourself, your organization, it's just very important that we come together right now. And so, Dr. James, thank you again for taking the time to lend your expertise and experience to our podcast. We really appreciate it.
Sure. Kendra, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working with you all these years. And of course, the continued conversation. Thank you.
Same here, Dr. James. If anybody has any questions or ideas for future topics, guests, etc., we would love to hear from you. You can email us at questions@energiasaves.com. We've had a great time speaking with Dr. James today, and we look to welcome you back at our next podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.